Brian Corey here from Necronomicast, and I'm very excited to tell you about the newest member of the Necronomicast family, PrimeNeckwear.com. Looking good has never been so easy, friends. Just go to PrimeNeckwear.com for 100% silk neckties in the latest styles, patterns, and colors. Check out their wide collection of standard neckties, bow ties, pocket squares, and accessories. Exquisite quality delivered to your door at affordable prices with impeccable customer service. Headquartered in Phoenix, Arizona, USA, PrimeNeckwear.com. From the historic haunted heartland of Omaha, Nebraska, my name is Brian Corey, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all, young and old, to this special edition of the world-famous Necronomicast. Tonight, I am joined not by one, not two, but three phenomenal guests who are experts in supernatural phenomena and who have crafted a remarkable new book entitled Women on the Fringe, Groundbreaking Women in the Paranormal. Denise A. Agnew, Marie D. Jones, and Nicole Strickland bring their impressive resumes, their impressive knowledge, and their impressive insights into the paranormal while bringing a much-needed spotlight into the important role that women in their field bring. Women on the Fringe, on this episode of Necronomicast. And now calling in on the Necronomicast hotline, the Newsmaker hotline, I have not one, not two, but three wonderful, distinguished guests joining me for this episode. These writers, between them, have written over 120 books, and they are collaborating for the first time on this project together, bringing all their talents onto a project called Women on the Fringe. And it's my distinct pleasure to welcome Marie D. Jones, Denise A. Agnew, and Nicole Strickland on the program. Friends, welcome to the Necronomicast.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We're old friends now. We've been talking for a little bit now, and we've got a good rapport going. And there's a lot of chemistry, a lot of excitement about this project. And it's a really great project. It's a great book. I enjoyed reading through it. You each bring something different to the table with this book, and like throughout the book, like you each have your stamp on it. You have your introductions and introductory essays, and then you go through a wonderful, like a whole part of the book where you're going through different people that are current modern day women in the paranormal and asking them to contribute like an essay. And then you have a great RIP section talking about those that have gone before us and where women in the paranormal are poised to go in the future. So to have you on my program to talk about this book, I'm super, super excited.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Nicole, we've been talking mostly about getting this organized and bringing this episode together. So I was reading through your bio, and you're just one of these great paranormal investigators that are out there on the West Coast, and you have a special relationship with the Queen Mary and a real focus on historical places. Please, if you would, just kind of tell me and my listeners a little bit about yourself and what brought you to this unique project of Women in the Fringe.
Sure. So I'll keep this somewhat short. I'm one of these, I like to say that I was almost born into the field, not knowing it until I was much later, of course, but I've always, since childhood, I've always had this keen fascination with the unknown, specifically ghosts and haunted locations. So I've always been fascinated with death, not in a negative way, the afterlife, so to speak. And so that stayed with me growing up. And I would get my hands on any books or anything really about the paranormal that I could read or watch. And so that interest, like I said, stayed with me. And I had even though I've had experiences since I was a little girl, I had a very, very profound experience when I was in college, and that was with my maternal grandmother. And so I think that really catapulted me out into the trenches, so to speak. That's when I started to investigate and really, really hardcore study paranormal research. And so things just took off from there. And I never planned this. Never when I was a little girl ever did I think I'd be a writer. I always enjoyed writing, but I never really thought I'd write a book. I never thought that I'd be in the paranormal, but here we are. So I think it's just, the universe had planned, so to speak. So yeah, I've always had fascinations with historical locations. I have my own team here in San Diego. That's the San Diego Paranormal Research Society. And then you mentioned the Queen Mary, and that's another aspect that I never planned. It just happened. And I remember being introduced to the Queen Mary in the year 2000. And I stepped aboard about a few years later, 2004, 2005. And it just was an instantaneous, I know this is going to sound cheesy, but like a love connection with the ship. And ever since I've been a historian really with the ship, and I've been studying her history, pretty much her building, her Art Deco inspiration, and even the paranormal aspect as well. So that took off, and just writing, my love for writing developed through my passion for afterlife and paranormal research. And I met Marie. I think we met Marie at the 2010 what was that called? Maritime Ghost Conference at the Maritime Museum of San Diego. And that's when I first, so many years ago, like 2010, I think it was.
Yeah.
And that's when I met Marie, and met Denise several years ago as well. And I've said this before, these are two individuals that are not just amazing paranormal researchers, but they're very dedicated writers. I mean, between the three of us, I've only written like 10 books. So the 110 goes to them. Okay. So, but it's really, really amazing to work with them. And this whole project, I think we had really good energy together, and it just gelled really nicely, and it came to be. So, Marie will tell you more about how that came to be, but it's been a really wonderful journey, and it's always a learning experience working with different people in the paranormal. So
wonderful. Now, were you the one and forgive me, I'm an old man and I'm reading all these bios of all these people, all the ones detailed in your book, and also the three of you. Were you the one of the three of you that had the mist-like apparition by the pool?
Yes.
Yes.
If that was in the Las Vegas when I was a little girl, yeah, that would, I think it would have been me. Yeah.
Like a wispy kind of something congealed when you're like over by the pool, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's weird because there's certain things in childhood that I don't remember. My mom or dad will remember something, and I'll be like, what, how can you remember that? But I distinctly remember that.
Yeah.
And I remember saying the words, here I am like 5. And I remember saying the words, Mom, Dad, look at that draft. Like, why would I have used the word draft to explain what I saw? But I remember it. It's a hardcore memory.
A strange mist that kind of manifested in front of you. That'd be something that you might remember. Like that might make a lasting impression on you when you're young.
Yeah, it was weird. It was just super weird, but it was summertime, so it was cool. It was interesting.
Well, Marie, she mentioned you, and I was reading through your bio, and you have a lot of like UFO background, a lot of interest in UFOs, especially like your work with MUFON. And you've written like over 30 nonfiction books. So tell me a little bit about yourself, for sure.
Well, I always knew I was going to be a writer from early on because I wanted to be an astronaut, a jockey, a teacher, 5 or 6 other things. And it became evident to me pretty early on that I could do all of those things and more by being a writer. So I got my first paycheck from the Globe, which is like the National Enquirer.
Yeah.
When I was like 7 years old, because I sent them a joke. But I was always writing. I would go out in the backyard. I lived in a part of New York where we had woods behind our house, and we had a lake, and I had a book bag filled with feathers and leaves and, all kinds of stuff. And I had my field guides, and I would go out and look at everything, and I'd write my notes and stuff. And, but I loved fiction. I loved storytelling. So my father was a scientist. He was a geophysicist and a seismologist. And he also had a background in astrophysics. And I grew up around the hard sciences, if you will. And we talked a lot about that. And he was a huge, huge UFO believer. And so were a lot of his colleagues. And they would come over and play poker, like once a week, and sit at the kitchen table. And I would sit at my dad's feet and I'd listen to them talk about UFOs. I remember later my dad said that this was not the kind of stuff they could talk about, on the job, so to speak. I started writing and getting paid regularly when I was like 15. I wrote features and reviews. I wrote exposés, all kinds of stuff. And I had already established kind of an obsession with UFOs and aliens. I don't know where it came from other than the fact that my dad loved it. And we had a neighbor that lived across the street who was equally obsessed. But there are some people that have sort of made me believe that maybe something happened when I was really young, because I did have a couple of experiences where I thought I was having a dream, but it was so realistic that to this day, I could still remember, it's a visceral thing. I didn't get into ghosts until a little bit later. And I didn't get into cryptids until maybe the last 15 years ago, and kind of saw how they're all really interrelated. But my angle had always been, can science explain any of this? And, if so, what? And what are we missing? What are we lacking? And those are conversations I had with my dad a lot before he died. Oh. We wrote a book together. It was about supervolcanoes, but, he was just so into, could quantum physics and theoretical physics explain UFOs and wormholes, blah, 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 blah. And that really influenced me pretty heavily. Well, when I was 15, and then I'll talk about the book, my best friend, her name was Carol. I'm not going to say her last name. We had moved from New York to San Diego, and she would never invite me over her house. And it finally came out that they were having incredible difficulties with what they thought was a poltergeist. Objects flying down the halls, breaking things. It would only happen when her older sister was there. Her name was Susan. And I had just by then started reading up a lot about ghosts and poltergeists and things like that. She begged me for help. They were Lutheran. The Lutheran church could not do anything. So I had the brilliant idea of thinking, well, maybe I could do an exorcism for them. Well, that didn't work out too well, because I did actually go spend the night. And even though nothing happened at that night, the next morning, I definitely felt a presence kind of move through me. We were sitting in the living room watching TV. And my friend Carol said, "Did you feel it?" And, it was not a draft or a breeze. But that was the first time I think I really got the understanding of how this stuff would get shoved under the rug and how you would get humiliated or made fun of or told you were crazy if you were having experiences that science could not yet explain. So, but I've written about all kinds of stuff. So this particular book, because I knew Nicole for quite a while, and I also knew Denise. Denise is my writing partner. We write screenplays together. We wrote our first novel together, a horror novel, by the way. And I think Nicole and I were having a back and forth conversation, and it was like, oh, we should do a book together. Well, what can we write about? It's like, oh, what about Women in the Paranormal? And it just, that one little conversation, then we brought Denise in. It was just like, okay, it just sort of grew wings and took off. I mean, it went from, oh, we should do this, to literally, okay, we have, you're going to get the cover, and we were planning. And this was a couple of years ago. And it was really, really tough, because we had to get the material. We had to get the women to contribute. And we had a lot of difficulty getting enough women. And a lot of women said they would, and then they didn't, or they couldn't. But like Nicole said, it is just sort of serendipitous, because I think we ended up with the most incredible, other than us, 32 women that you could imagine. Yeah. And now there are women that, why didn't you ask me? It's like, oh, well, we did kind of put it out there. We put the word out on Facebook, and we also approached people that we already knew. And we were going to have it published with a small publisher, and that fell through. And I'm so glad it did, because we got to do this ourselves and have total control over it. And, the result, I think, is just an incredible book.
Yeah, I think the book's fantastic. And you got the word out enough that it's making the rounds of the paranormal, at least the podcast circuit. And I'm sure you guys are getting booked for appearances left and right, because it is a really thorough, well-written book. And let's talk about some experience with Denise. Denise, like over 70 books. I was reading over your resume.
That's incredible. My gosh. Both of you. Both of you. My
He
gosh.
makes us both look bad.
Yeah,
no, I'm like little 10 over here. I mean, no, you guys are amazing.
And then Denise, like also screenplays for movies that are on the Lifetime Network. I mean, like real established, fantastic writing, a great career. And so let's talk about what you're bringing to the project, and like your insight in putting together a book after you've done 70 so far, 70 plus.
Well, one of the things that I was going to say for sure is that I feel like Nicole and Marie and I have so many things in common as far as childhood goes, because we can all say the same thing that we kind of knew from the time we were kids, that this was something we were interested in. And I think, at least for me, and it sounds like for the other ladies too, it wasn't something that we thought about, hey, why don't I be interested in the paranormal? Because as a little kid, you're either interested in it or you're not, right? It's like anything else. And so for me, all of it was interesting to me. The ghosts, the Bigfoot, the UFO, anything that was weird, I was interested in it and wanted to know more about it. So I still even have some old books that were 1970s paperbacks about UFOs and Bigfoot way back then, which, I've kept the books, and I'm hauling from place to place with me. But when I was a little kid, I really didn't think necessarily that I had any specific abilities or anything like that. It was all just my interest in it. And as time went on, I kind of started to feel like there were things that I knew about other people, things that I could tell that people felt. That was way before anybody coined the term empath. And I know that gets thrown around a lot, but it certainly is ageless. I mean, I'm sure people have been doing this for the beginning of time, but it was just something that I didn't understand how adults couldn't understand some of the things that I could understand about themselves. And so I would make comments as a little kid about how someone felt, like one of my parents or some other adult. And they would just look at me between being flabbergasted. How's that little 6-year-old reading me like that? What is it? How do they know that? And it went between people getting mad at the fact that I knew something, and, my parents kind of looking at me like, my parents never told me, hey, don't say that. So that was good. But they kind of just, but they also, my mom and dad were great at letting me read and watch anything I wanted. I read The Exorcist when I was 11 years old. Didn't have nightmares, or any of that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just waving because on a previous episode, I talked about how my parents were older and they, it's like we didn't have a lot of video games and things like that. So they was like, oh, Brian's reading. That's fantastic. We're really excited that look at him sit over there with a book. Yeah. Well, with my paper route, I was, buying 50-cent garage sale copies of The Exorcist and Jaws and reading them when I was like,
yep, exactly.
Sorry.
For life.
Yeah.
No, but when you said that, I'm like, oh yeah, Denise, like right on.
Yeah. Well, my mom, she actually read The Exorcist. She read Jaws, stuff like that. She really wasn't interested in the paranormal stuff that much, but it was such a popular book that she just said, hey, I'm going to read it. And then it was lying around and she didn't care if I read it. So I was reading all the stuff, watching all the books that nobody else's kids were allowed to do any of that stuff. And so I really had nobody to talk to about it because it just wasn't talked about in our family, because I think my mom believed in it a little bit, but my dad didn't. And it was just like, nobody cared about it. But as time went on, I slowly kind of got the realization that maybe I had some psychic abilities, and the mediumship stuff that I do, I didn't really understand that I had that ability until like 2018, which sounds kind of strange, but it was something that I was doing without realizing I was doing it and not recognizing how the mediumship looked for me, and that was a real thing for me. But as far as the books go, I'm mostly a fiction writer. So the nonfiction venture with this book is new for me, and the new nonfiction that Marie and I are doing together as well. Everything else I do is fiction in a variety of different genres. And so that's how I've kind of fit into the project.
So with 120 books between the three of you, this is a concept that I when I'm awake at night and I'm thinking about things, I always think, or I have thought, like, you know, if a kind of ghost is something that of us that persists after our bodily death, you know, a part of our consciousness that's out there after our bodily death. A lot of times I think like a book, like an old book is like a ghost. You know, it's something, it's somebody's ideas and their thoughts and their passions, and it's their ideas that's persisted after their bodily death. So like your guys are contributing to the spirit world, not only with the content matter of your book, but someday that this book, this Women on the Fringe will be a haunted classic that's on people's shelves out there, you know?
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
That'd be great. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's weird. It's weird for sure. Hey, you know, I'm asking this question, and I know there's the answer to it, and I know we're going to talk about it, but I'm just asking it just to get the conversation started. But why does there need to be a book about women on the fringe? Why do we need a special focus on women in the paranormal? Why is that? I ask. Go ahead. Somebody jump in. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Marie.
I will. We didn't need it. We just wanted to do it.
Oh, I think there's kind of a need, but you know
what? The three of us, we talk a lot about this stuff, and in a way, it was like we all know, like on our Facebook list, so many women that are not getting the attention that they deserve for the incredible work they're doing down in the trenches. Some of the women in here are a little famous. We tried not to focus too much on the recognizable people because they get enough attention.
Sure. But
it kind of blew us all away. And like I said, we could only put 32 in here. Otherwise, we'd have this thick of a Stephen King novel. But it kind of blew us away how many women are out there doing the hard work, and they're not necessarily known. And we wanted to celebrate them. I mean, we love men. We love the contributions that men make, but women also bring different things to the table.
Oh, yeah.
And we really, really wanted them to tell their own stories. Like, we didn't want, let's have women talk to us and then we'll write their essays. These essays are written in their own words. Mm-hmm. And that was just really important, I think, I'll let the other two ladies speak, but I think we really just wanted to celebrate the women that we're seeing on our feeds, like, oh my God, she's doing, what the heck? Wow, cool. How cool is that?
Absolutely.
And just celebrate them.
Yeah, fantastic. Nicole, you were going to say?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think I see the tide turning on this, but women can really bring a lot to the table besides just the woo-woo-ness, besides just the metaphysical, intuitive side, which is super, super important. But, women can do science too. Mm-hmm. And so this book, each woman that's featured in it has such a amazing background, such a deep background and passion for what they do. And each story is so eclectic in its own way. So we have, ghost researchers to psychic mediums to authors to podcasters to those in ufology and cryptozoology. We even have those, and that one lady does like ghost like archaeology excavation. We have a spirit artist in there. So just all kinds of women from all walks of life with such a passion for what they do, and they're good at it. Mm-hmm. And so that I think is really, really important to showcase that. And women can be both intuitive and psychic, and they can be amazing channelers, but they can also participate in the science aspect as well. And I think that tide is turning, from the spiritualist days, women, psychic mediums, mm-hmm. Men were thought of as the more logical thinkers. Women were more the woo-woo dreamers. I think that trait kind of followed the spiritualist movement, but yet we're seeing women, just as men are, kind of delving into both the metaphysical and the science aspect, which is really good.
And Denise, I see you nodding your head in agreement up there.
Yeah, yeah, I do. Well, one of the things that I really like about the women that are in this book is that a lot of them do have, I think sometimes when we see people on TV doing paranormal investigation and that's their main focus, I'm sure even those people who might be more famous in the public eye have other things in their life that they're really good at or they're really interested in doing. And it's obvious that all of these women do a lot of different things in their lives. For example, one of the people that I brought into the project was Kirsten Parsons Hathcock. She was on Shark Tank and one of the episodes of Shark Tank with her furniture company that she wanted to start. And mediumship, one of the things I noted about her in particular is that her mediumship came to her much later. In fact, in her case, she had no mediumship ability that she was aware of until much later on. It just hit her like a ton of bricks. And of course, when people read the story in the book, they'll understand what that's all about. But so there's that. There's all these different kinds of experiences they've each had. And so it's the other great thing that I think, like as Nicole pointed out, is I think it's great to see women really embrace what it is they like to do, because as that tide is turned and it's taken a long time to do, a lot of those women they've been really brave, really, if you think about it. They've been very brave saying, hey, I'm going to do this and I don't care what anybody thinks about it. And I always appreciate women that do that, who can really step away from the idea that, hey, lady, women don't do that sort of thing, and
Yeah, I'll be judged. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah. And it's really nice to see that. And I appreciate that in every single one of them.
As a podcaster that has a lot of people in the paranormal of, all walks of life on the show, I'm always not, I don't want to say overly, like, this sounds weird, but like, I'm always impressed when I get somebody on that really knows their stuff. And tell you the truth, most times, it's a woman in the field in the paranormal, like Deborah Blum. She's a Pulitzer Prize winning author. She wrote a book, Ghost Hunters. I don't know if you've read it. It's all about tracing the spiritual movement and like the history and the history of the Society for Psychical Research. Fantastic book. And I had Dr. Catherine Ramsland on. She's like one of the world's foremost experts on serial killers and true crime. And Leslie Ballantyne, she's an award-winning historian and author, and she's known as the Queen of Halloween. And I've learned so much from their rich background and their fantastic works as a podcaster, and having conversations with them, that there is a lot more than just running around in abandoned buildings at night, challenging ghosts to fight you. There's a real, you know what I mean? There's a real brilliant, and there's a misconception that it's not like this ghost hunting is more thrill seeking than anything else, but it's history and it's research and there's so much and philosophy to it too. If we're really talking about what happens to us after our bodily death, that you can't just limit yourself to just a television show or guys that go and guys and gals that just challenge themselves to see how long they can hang out in an abandoned building. That's all fine and everything. But I really appreciate all the people that do hard, diligent research and work and put pen to paper and write all this down for all of us. It's amazing.
Well, I think about maybe 7-8 years ago, there were, might have even been longer, there were so many ghost hunting groups popping up, thousands of them. Mm-hmm. And I think what happened, great, they were interested, they were excited, they were into the more of the surface fun of it. And I think over the years, it just basically, a lot of people that got into it for the cheap thrills, so to speak, they just fell by the wayside. And the people that really are devoted to trying to solve these mysteries, or at least advance our understanding of them, are people like the women in this book.
Absolutely.
They stuck it out. But I remember that. I was like, you could not go on Facebook, because at that point there was no Instagram yet. And and there were just like hundreds of them.
They were sprouting, like wildfire.
Yeah. And then they kind of came and went.
one thing that I noticed happened is that a lot of times, like the little paranormal group that I belong to, we live in kind of a very rural area. So there's only so much you can investigate,
Yeah, right.
and there's unless we were able to like go to other cities and do that. And we haven't been able to do that nearly as much as we want. And so, I'm one of those people that's like, I can't imagine myself ever not wanting to do this. My interest is the same or even more than it was when I was a little kid. And not only that, but I'm one of those people that I'm like, yeah, I'll sit in the dark room that nobody else wants to. And
Yes.
sit there and wait and see what happens. And so I would probably be a really horrible TV program person, because not only would I not be challenging the ghosts, but I wouldn't be screaming probably if something, I guess I shouldn't say that because it would depend on what happened, I guess. But, I probably wouldn't run and scream. So
Yeah.
to me, it's like, which is not to say that nothing could scare me. I'm sure there's something that could, but it's, I just haven't run into it yet.
I haven't either. 20 years doing this. And I haven't really, there's been one time where I didn't feel threatened, but I felt that I needed to exit the building. But Denise, you bring a good point, because I think a lot of people that have longevity in the field not only have a passion for it, but they had such a profound experience, whether it was from childhood or maybe when they were in their teens or even as an adult. They had that compelling experience that just motivated them to just really want to get out there in the trenches. And I think when you have an experience like that, it sticks with you and really can develop into a passion. There's a whole different psychological difference between thrill seeking, which, there's nothing wrong with that, right, and those that really want to delve into all the different aspects of paranormal research. But the women in this book, you can tell, you can, when reading the words, you can feel their passion and their dedication. And I think that is an aspect that makes the book really shine.
Yeah, for sure.
And some of these women will say borderline obsession. I mean, they'll admit it, it's like, this is an obsession.
Totally. Totally.
All right. I want to ask a question, like, and it'll be a long-winded way to get to the question, but like what I like is a book about, it's a book about a diverse look at people involved in the paranormal, namely women on the fringe. But then within that diversity, there's even more diversity besides gender. I mean, people say there's no such thing as like an expert in the paranormal, but there are people that do have expertise in things and rich experiences. And I remember when I was reading through Alexandria Weiss.
Yeah.
She was the registered nurse. And I was reading through her, and I read through her essay again, and she's talking about how she's been with every dying patient that she tended to, and it changed her preconceived notions of death and like her experiences. So you do have paranormal archaeologists, you do have investigators, podcasters, writers, researchers, but then even like a registered nurse. So like here's the question. So how did you decide, when you're getting these essays in, or you're getting submissions, you're getting people that are interested in contributing to this project, how did you make, I don't want to say cuts, but how did you make decisions about where and how to include all these diverse expertise of experience?
We didn't have to work hard. Basically, they just kind of, when they came into this project, they really just fit. It wasn't like we had to sit there and go, oh, nope, this person, doesn't make the cut. No. we didn't have to do that. They were just there. And there's so many of them. Again, like we can only stuff so many into one book. Mm-hmm. People keep saying, oh, we're going to need to do another book. And we're like, maybe,
Yeah. And we knew, like, from our backgrounds, a lot of the women, and we knew the quality of the work they were doing. So we approached them. And then we also did our call outs on social media. And it was just really weird because we did get a lot of women that it would have been nice to have them included, but for, busyness or what have you. But we ended up with women that, like, I don't know that we could have imagined some of the people that we ended up with that were just so unique. Like we have a galactic historian. Right. And we have a spirit artist. And those are people that, when we think about paranormal, we think about ghosts aliens, cryptids, whatever, psychic abilities. And so we were it was really fun to have some people coming in that sort of stretched those boundaries for us.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, what's cool, when I was going through here and like, there's a lot of people in here I've never heard of. Some I've heard of. And then I did a little bit of research, but has there been like a talk of like networking, or have people that have contributed to this book that know that they're in this book? Have they kind of like, do you see like more relationships forming because of this work? Like, is there going to be like I don't know, a Women on the Fringe? I could see like this being like a Women on the Fringe convention or something like a gathering.
That would be so cool if somebody would put that together.
That would be rad. Yeah, I said it. Rad. Yes, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and we are discussing pitching it as a TV show. I will say that I noticed there were quite a few that come from the Pacific Northwest. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if they all knew each other. I thought, I hope they find each other.
Well, actually, I actually went to the Oregon Ghost Conference back in 2015. I've presented at the conference a few times, and I met some amazing people up there that have become very good friends of mine. So the community up there, from what I've noticed, they all know each other and they all work well together. I'm sure there's some that are on the outskirts, but generally speaking, there's a cohesive and collective nature about the teams up there. Oregon Ghost Conference is a fantastic convention. And so, so that's how I met some of the individuals up in that area. So they're all great up there.
And the book just came out, in March or
last week.
So we're really excited because a lot of the gals are doing boy, you can tell them in my 60s, huh? They're doing TikToks and everybody's promoting it. And we said, you guys go on radio. You don't need our permission. And
absolutely.
And I think our hope is that it will kind of, grow into something more than just a book. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I mean, it all happened. It took a couple of years, right, ladies? But it still feels like it all happened really quickly. Like boom, 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 boom. Here's the book.
Totally.
Yeah, it just seems like this would be just such a great catalyst for a spark of not only conversation, but also connections between people, and to exchange ideas and build upon what's contained in between the covers here. For sure.
Sure.
Yeah, I hope so. That would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. It wasn't a foreign concept to me that there should be a book about women on the fringe, because I'll tell you, in my experience, and this is probably not typical. Now my mom kind of raised me from teenage years on. My dad passed away when I was 15. And so the strength and the resiliency of a single mom. I met my wife. She's like the only person I know that got like all A's in high school and college. She's a professional woman. My firstborn child is my daughter. She's graduating from high school. So like, I come from a strong woman. I married a strong woman. Hopefully we're raising a strong daughter. But like in the paranormal area here that I'm in, Omaha, Nebraska, there is a lady, and she's been on my show, and she's a friend of mine, but she started Omaha's paranormal convention, the HauntedCon, years ago. And now she's focused her attention to doing ghost tours here in Omaha area, and owns her own boutique called the Benson. It's an area town called Benson, the Benson Boutique. So she's like the paranormal ambassador for Omaha. Her name's Jamie, and she's fantastic. And then if you ever come to Nebraska, I'm the host and MC of the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference, and that was started by an 80-year-old woman named Harriet McFeely. This is her book.
Wow.
Called that is awesome.
That's fabulous.
I love it. Oh, I love it.
Now, I'll tell you something, what I love about Harriet, and you can go back and listen to a past episode of my show and listen to Harriet. Harriet is in her 80s. She started this museum maybe 10 or so years ago, the conference about 6 or 7 years ago, and it's grown every year. But, she grew up, 80 some odd years ago, and she was excited by science, and she always wanted to be like a museum curator. And, 80 some odd years ago, oh, I'm sorry, you're not.
Yeah, you're a woman. Nope.
Right.
No, so she was a secretary, married a wonderful man that supported her passions. And then she decided to live her lifelong dream of being a museum curator. And she just made her own museum.
Oh, that's funny.
Fantastic.
Wow. Should have had the book.
I know.
Start it.
And that's why, like, if you guys decide to do like a sequel or a spin-off or a TV thing or something like that, you need to come to Omaha. You need to talk to Jamie, who's doing it her way with her own ghost tours. You need to go to Hastings, Nebraska and talk to Harriet, 80-something-year-old Harriet, and talk to her about, like living her dream. She's always been enchanted with Bigfoot, and it's so... She's got way more. She's twice my age and she's got way more energy than I do. And she's so excited about her conference and her museum and about Bigfoot and cryptozoology. So cool. I just think
that warms my heart. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I know.
Isn't that the best story?
Yes.
But there are women like that in every little town you could imagine.
Yeah.
Right? That are doing this stuff and nobody knows that they're there.
But see, that's the thing. I think like, I don't say like your book's not needed. What I'm saying is like, there is a need for people to know that there are already women out there that are doing this.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
This book will inspire women to follow their dreams and to also explore this side of the weird world that's out there and not think it's only the domain for certain demographic people,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
We're making Fringe cool.
For sure.
Cool. Hashtag Fringe cool. Yeah.
We used to be so negative and oh, you're weird. But hey, we are. Yeah. We're weird.
I embrace weird. I'm cool with it. I am totally fine with that.
All these women do. It's so cool.
Yeah.
So I want you guys to know you like you're not alone, like way off in little old Omaha, Nebraska, like, Nebraska with a population of 1.8 million people. There's the only Bigfoot museum in the Midwest, started by an 80-year-old
That is
woman,
amazing.
I want to visit.
Yeah.
I do. That's so cool.
She's a delight for sure.
Thanks for sharing that. It's really inspiring.
Yeah. So you're not alone. It's underreported rather than underrepresented because you've got a whole.
Yes, you're right. You've
got dozens of people that have contributed that are doing important work out there, but it's underreported, it's under highlighted for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, if this book does well, we might have to think about volume 2.
I think so. I do. Which will
now
be
that we
fun
know
to
how
do.
to do it. Yeah, right. Now that we know how to put a book together, we've been through the trenches.
Absolutely. It'd be so much easier, got everything all pretty packed together. So,
and the hard thing is finding women like that, unless we were to talk to somebody like you and you tell us, and that's what's been a little hard. But I think now that the book is getting out there, we'll probably be exposed to more stories like that.
Sure.
Just sort of organically.
Well, and then like girls like my daughter, now she doesn't have a taste for the weird as much as I would like for her to have. But
have her read the book.
But in every middle school in America, in every high school in America, there's somebody in that library that's looking for the Bigfoot book. They're
sure.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Where is the ghost book? And now here's another great book that can inspire somebody 10, 15 years down the road, contributing an essay to Women on the Fringe, part 5, part 6.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have a whole franchise.
Yeah, there you go.
That is cool. Yeah, to think that this could inspire people to, let it all hang out, so to speak, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. Like, do you guys, did you meet somebody that contributed to the book that you were like, and you don't have to name them by name, but I mean, like you read like these things, you're like, oh my God, this is an incredible story. We have to put this in the book. I mean, was there something that like any stories in there that particularly touched you or that just drew you in that like, we have to include this?
Let's see. I'll go just because it's off the top of my head. I'll mention, I mean, all the stories. It's so hard because all the stories are so unique and so inspiring and so educational.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's really hard to pick, but one individual, Josie Varga, she's a good friend of mine. And I have a love for New York City and visited New York after, September 11th and all that. So her story does deal with September 11th. I'll just say that. And it's one of those, it's stories that goes to show that, when someone physically passes, that bond never leaves, that, that eternal connection that we all have. So it reminds us that, yes, with physical death, there's loss, but really, there's still that connection there. So that's something that really, really inspired me, because I would say in the last few years, I'm starting to branch off into more afterlife study as well, human consciousness after survival of human consciousness after death and near-death experiences and things like that. So her story was, actually kind of made me get a little tear when I read it. So
yeah, she's the one that talked about having that vivid dream.
Yes. Yeah.
After 9/11.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but they're all, every single contribution in there is just, it blew our minds, really.
Yeah. Well, and I think I would have a hard time picking primarily too, because when you read each of those stories, to me, there was something in each one of them that being a really shy kid and a very introverted kid when I was little, I didn't have a lot of confidence to, as they say, show your freak flag, whatever, just whatever you're interested in. That was like, no, got to hide that stuff. Somebody might find out that I'm interested in that stuff and they might laugh or, point or whatever. And I think what was cool about some of these ladies is they didn't have that fear right from the beginning. From what I can tell, some of them may not, some of them may have been, they didn't talk about that in particular, but I just kind of felt like they were already understanding that this was something they were going to do, and they weren't worried about what other people thought. So I find that really inspiring for me, because like the whole mediumship thing for me was kind of scary, because I spent a lot of time going, no, I'm not a medium. No, I'm not a medium. No. And then people would say, no, yes, but how did you just do that thing that you just did if you weren't a medium, So it's taken a lot for me to kind of let that shingle hang out there and say, yes, I am that way. I am a medium. And so all of those ladies had parts, I think, that I was inspired by to show you could do this, whatever it was, whatever kind of research, whatever kind of investigation, that, it's possible to say, hey, here I am, take it or leave it.
Sure.
That kind of thing.
Just curious, like when you started finding out that you, had these gifts, or like you started realizing things that you were, feeling about, and did you ever think like, I've talked to some people that thought they were either going crazy or there's something wrong with them, until they figured out what was really because of like a stigma about those kinds of things. Did you ever kind of feel that too?
I didn't feel, I thought I had some psychic abilities, and I wasn't nearly as intimidated by that thing as I was the mediumship, because the mediumship, I just had this idea in my head about what that looked like. Because, I realized that every medium did things differently.
Right.
But I sort of had it in my head that it was like the movie Sixth Sense in a way, or Medium about Alison Dubois. You saw full figured apparitions and stuff like that. That isn't actually how it works for me. So I just thought, I'm making that stuff up because I'm a fiction author. I make stuff up all day long, right? I'm making that stuff up. I must be making it up. I didn't think
lying for fun and profit.
Right. And I just kept waiting for somebody to say, no, that's not what you are. You just think you are.
Yeah.
Well, it's better than thinking that you're thinking of yourself as crazy. So that's good. Like, you didn't doubt yourself too much.
Right. Yeah. I was just more realizing that I consider myself a baby medium, I guess, because I believe that I still have a long ways to go, a lot of things to learn, and I'm open to learning those things. And so I don't think I have it all nailed by any stretch.
Yeah. The way it's been described to me is like everybody has like the ability to play the piano, but not everybody's going to be not everybody's going to be a concert pianist.
Right, exactly.
You might have enough in you to bang out a song here or there, or maybe learn Happy Birthday or something, and that would qualify you as being able to play a piano. But,
chopsticks,
right? I think my mediumship ability would be about akin to chopsticks, but yeah.
Don't underestimate yourself.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more mediums running around out there than they realize.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, probably. Yeah, definitely.
And I just don't want everybody thinking that if you have that kind of, if you start to notice that about yourself, I don't want society to just automatically label you as crazy, you know?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, and sometimes people are going to do that anyway. I mean, I've had friends that kind of were probably really shocked by that. Family members and stuff that probably said, what the heck is this?
What's wrong with Denise?
What kind of tangent is she off on now? You know, she'll forget about it. Just wait long enough.
Yeah, she'll grow out of it.
Girl, I'm the guy that like my friends are like, oh, Brian's cool and all, but you know, this weekend he's going to go host that Bigfoot conference in Grand Island, Nebraska. I mean, does Brian really think there's Bigfoot out there? Like, what is he? Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, listen, I have had the greatest time talking to you three, and honest to goodness, great book, fantastic project.
Thank you.
I love the concept behind it. I love how you assembled it. I loved your essays at the beginning. It was great to get to know you through your words, and now also seeing you all face to face and talking this out. And my very best on the success of the book. Now, I don't know if you want to, continue this or if you want to do other projects, but I hope that its success inspires you to do more, because I think it's great. I think you guys all did a great job on it. And having you on my program, I'm really excited to put this episode out, and I'm really proud that I was able to get the women on the fringe on the Necronomicast.
Thank you so much. I love it.
The fringy women. Yeah, thank you. Really, thank you. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Well, there we go, everybody. Episode 273 of Necronomicast. Denise A. Agnew, Marie D. Jones, and Nicole Strickland, Women on the Fringe. That book is available wherever you go to buy books. Episode 274 comes up in 2 weeks, and my guests are Nicole and Noelle. They are the hosts of a podcast out of Chicago entitled The Quite Unusual Podcast, and I think you're going to have quite a wonderful time listening to that conversation. I want to thank the organizers and the attendees and everybody associated with the 2024 Nebraska Bigfoot Conference that was held in Grand Island the last weekend. I had a great time being the onstage host and the MC for that event, and I look forward to next year's event. It's getting bigger and better every year. Hey kids, as I release this, turn on your TV sets next weekend, May 11th, and catch me as part of a new television show entitled Kill or Be Killed on the Oxygen Network, helping tell the story of a unusual, strange murder case out of Kansas City, Missouri. So, Kill or Be Killed, Oxygen Network, starting this weekend, my episode's on. That was a ton of fun. I'll talk more about that later. But thanks for listening. Like and subscribe. Support the creatives. Have a good night, good life. Go get some sleep.